charge of our own destiny as business owners. We get to choose who we work with and who we don't work with. And if we can have those strategic thoughts in the first place, then we can actually drive our own ship and go where we want to go rather than just wherever we end up.
Okay, welcome back to the Business Behind Your Business. And look, we're following on from the idea of how a business owner can push through some of the struggles and I guess issues that they've been facing in recent times. And what do you need to do as a business owner to push forward? And we've had some great input from our guests about the need for strategy and focus and the need to take action, but also the need to keep an eye on your finances. But I guess one of the biggest things that always keeps coming back is, how do I get more revenue? How do I get more sales? How do I get the right kind of sales? And that's a question that we're going to look into in a lot more detail today, particularly about how you get the right kind of customer. And look, as always, we've brought in the experts to help us with this conversation. So we have Marama Carmichael from Oracle Tree today. And Marama is, an industry-leading business growth consultant, digital strategist. Now, that's a word that didn't occur 20 years ago. A mentor, an author. She's the CEO of Oracle Tree, which is an award-winning digital marketing agency, and she's got over 25 years of experience in business, knowing what it takes to make digital strategies work, but not just work, convert. And Marama has a passion for helping small, medium business owners work smarter, not harder, reaching ambitious growth milestones and tackling business obstacles head on. And now I also want to ask about this because she's also the author of one of the Amazon bestsellers, a book called Fixing Frankenstein, How to Take the Monster Out of Running Your Small Business, which I think, just from reading the title, is something that we're probably all interested in. So Marama, you're coming to us today from the sunny Gold Coast. I'm sitting in soggy Sydney. Yeah, welcome to the microphone.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Always lovely to see smiling faces, so it's good.
Absolutely fantastic. So look, you're passionate about helping small, medium business owners convert. And I think we talked about some of the monsters you've talked about in your book, the monster of running a small business. But I think there's a core issue about how a lot of business owners are sending their marketing message to the wrong people.
100%. I think it kind of goes back. The reason I chose the title for the book is I find a lot of business owners, they kind of get into business for the best of reasons, right? They have a passion, or they're really, really, really good at a craft, and more people want the craft. So it happens really organically and flowy. And then they get a little bit too big to manage their own thing. So they might hire some people, and they will often end up in a place where they had no intention of going, had no real structure or focus on how to get there. It wasn't intentional, and they've kind of created a horrible monster that they're working with horrible clients, working really, really long hours and not doing what they got into business for, which is why, I call it a Frankenstein business, and you kind of get bits and bolt on other bits, and the thing's kind of working but kind of not working, and it's just like, it's the Frankenstein business, and you're like, oh my God, like, what am I even going to do with this? And I think a lot of it comes down to strategy, of course, but then essentially, as we were talking about before, the strategy about getting to choose who you actually want to work with and being really definite about that and attracting everybody. Because, as you start putting more people on, you need to pay those wages, and you need to pay super, and you need to pay for all the things that come with growing a business. And then sometimes I think business owners can get a little bit desperate, and they'll just take whoever has money. If you've got money, that's okay, that's good enough for me. And you kind of end up having not good experiences with your clients. So I think that that's something that we forget that we can do, that we're in charge of our own destiny as business owners. We get to choose who we work with and who we don't work with. And if we can have those strategic thoughts in the first place, then we can actually drive our own ship and go where we want to go rather than just wherever we end up.
Yeah, and that's one of the big frustrations that a lot of business owners express, is that they're not happy with the way their business is and what they're doing with it, who they're doing it for. And if you ask them, why did you start your business and what did you want? You wanted the right type of client, the client that pays you, that you enjoy working with, that's going to make a profit from. You want to have time off. You don't want to be working ridiculous hours. You want control of your business. You want to be able to make choices in line with your goals and your lifestyle. And then when we compare the business today to what they thought they were going to get, there's a big difference and a lot of frustration. And it's not fun.
No.
Business has
I think
become not fun.
not fun at all. And I think a lot of people get into business because they want freedom. Like that's the thing is that they want freedom. They don't want to work for a boss. They want to be able to set their own time and set their own hours. And then the hours they set themselves are 100 hours a week on the grind, doing things that don't necessarily suit them, don't suit who they are innately as humans. You're spending time trying to do the books when they really shouldn't be doing the books, spending time trying to do their own marketing when they really shouldn't be doing their own marketing, spending time trying to manage HR when they really shouldn't be managing HR, all of that stuff. And they just try and do their thing. And I think it's a lot of businesses, a lot of SMEs have that same thing. And then as they get bigger and bigger, it's harder to move, right? Because you've ended up making a bigger ship that gets harder to move. Then change course and change direction and retrofit because you've got more moving parts that are already in place.
A lot of aspects to the business that I guess people think that because they're running their own business, they have to do these tasks or these roles. And that's where a lot of the frustration is. And I think sometimes it's a case of I don't have the resources to engage somebody. So how do I do this? But let's focus on one of the core issues that you're very good at, and I think was one of those key frustrations that was coming through is how do we identify the right type of client for our business? What's the process?
So the process that I recommend is actually a little bit of introspection and thinking about who your clients are that you really like working with right now. And then we create a thing called a customer avatar, which some of your business owners and listeners might be aware of. It's like basically a made up version of a human that is a representative of your customer. A few things about that is I don't recommend, some people do, but I don't recommend that you think of a literal customer, like this is Jenny, I work with Jenny, I like Jenny. Because if you do your business right, Jenny's going to change as they're working with you. So the Jenny that you know now, 5 years after you've been working with her, isn't the Jenny that met you on the first day when she needed your services. So I'd recommend against thinking of an actual person, but really going through and thinking, kind of creating a composite character. It's quite a creative process. So you think about, who they are. What is their name if they were one individual person? Because one mistake I see a lot of business owners make in their marketing is they try and be everything to everybody, which just means they become white noise and no one hears it. Human beings are very adept at only seeing what interests them, which is why we end up with echo chambers on social media and why the algorithms work, because you show an interest in something, you get more of that something and more of that something and more of that something. So if you're not consistent in your messaging, then you don't get to break through in any market. So you might as well be putting your effort behind the people that you actually want to attract and not the people that you don't want to attract. So for instance, if you're talking about your language on your website and on your social media and you're talking in small terms, so just say you want to be working with but you're a B2B and you want to work with businesses that have teams of whatever size. Use the language that your clients use when they're talking about it. You're not going to be talking about you are doing this. You're going to be talking about your team doing this. You're going to be talking about hiring problems. They're going to have different problems and different solutions. And a very early startup business where they're literally doing everything by themselves is going to be much different from a team with 10 people, and that's going to be different from a team with 50 people, and that's going to be different from a team with 200 people and 2,000 people. So if you're thinking about the language that your customers actually use, so that would be tip number 2, is actually think about the words, the actual words your customers say to you and your ideal customers say to you when they're coming to you. When they say, I need help with XYZ, what is it that they're saying? Because again, as business owners who are experts at our craft, oftentimes we will translate what they're saying to us to be what we know the problem is, which isn't what the customer thinks is the problem yet. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes when we're translating for the customer, we're putting our own slant on it and coming up with the answer that we think it should be to fit a product that we want to sell to them.
Exactly. Yeah. But when they're actually coming to us and like expressing, I have this problem, like this is a mess, I need help with this. So that's what it is. Like it might, like whatever your solution is your solution. Your customers don't actually care about your solution. They care about what their problem is and that you can fix it in some way, shape or form. But you need to, when in your marketing things, when you're putting messaging out there, wherever it's going, which I know as we were talking about before, needs to be where your customers are and where they're thinking about that thing that their problem is. But when you're putting the messaging out, you need to meet people where they are. You don't want to meet people where you are.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I see that quite a lot happening. That the business owners they focus on where they think they want to be, or the I guess the bright shiny marketing tool that they're interested in at the time. And there's some danger in that. And look, I think look, going to your website, one of the things that really jumped out at me was the marketing tree.
So I love my marketing tree. So if you imagine a tree, like a kid's drawing of a tree, and you've got the root structure at the bottom of the tree, and lovely big thick root structure that goes out into the earth. I think of that root structure as a strategy. So the more robust and solid and broad your strategy is, the stronger your tree is going to be. And then the trunk of the tree is your brand. And so again, the stronger your brand is, the thicker your trunk is, the harder it is going to be to damage. Like you can cut down a twig that is a barely formed tree, like a little sapling, really, really easily. Like it doesn't have a strong brand, doesn't have strong roots. You could like pull it out by the roots, it's gone. It out of there. But if you've got a really robust tree, it's really hard to actually cut down. It takes a lot of effort. This is another problem I see with a lot of business owners who are trying to manage everything themselves or manage things without having the strategy, is they'll outsource their brand to people without any instruction or anything. And so you'll go and they'll have used a VA or someone to do their social media, and different VA, so it all looks different, so the brand just isn't consistent. Or they'll put things into ChatGPT without knowing about it, and so then everything sounds like ChatGPT instead of sounding like their brand. Or they'll do these things, and every single one of those posts is like someone taking like an axe and like making a chip in the trunk of your brand, making a chip. You can outsource all that stuff. Like we do work for our clients. You can outsource and all that. You can't do that, but you just need to have like a strategy behind what's the language, what's the colors you're using, who your client is, what pain's your problem you're solving, all of that kind of stuff, which comes from the roots of the tree, right? And then you can have a strong brand. And then on top of that trunk, you've got the branches. And so you kind of think that one branch might be your website, one branch might be social media as a whole, and then the branches off the branches are all the different platforms. And then one branch is word of mouth, because word of mouth is a really strong marketing channel. And one branch might be, speaking engagements, and one branch might be, events, or like whatever your different branches of marketing are. One might be, cold outreach, flyers, newspapers, anything, doesn't matter, all the different branches. And then you've got the leaves on the tree, which would be a social media post, a blog post, appearing at a particular event, making one particular connection, having coffee with someone if it's a networking branch, that kind of stuff. So I think that having a really robust marketing platform, you end up with a really strong tree that then you can, so this is true fact, you can cut 10% of a tree without damaging it. So you can have, if you've got a really robust thing, you can lose 10% of that tree. You could be, okay, we're not going to be doing events anymore. We chop that entire branch off. Your tree's still going to be fine. The other thing with marketing that is something that people kind of don't get is that the world now is more complex. Like it's not always a straight line, particularly when you're doing brand awareness type marketing. Like unless you're doing advertising, which is like blended into marketing, and we're kind of getting a little bit of semantics now, but unless it's like I did this ad, someone downloaded this thing or went to my website, they bought this product, it's like a direct line. I spent this money, they came, they bought. One thing that I think a lot of people don't think of is that even with word of mouth, which a lot of clients come from word of mouth, but usually so I'll ask you, so someone tells you that someone is awesome, what's the very first thing that you do, Paul?
Well, I'll go and check out their website, their Google reviews, their social media, whatever I can find out about them before I make contact with them.
Exactly. And so does everyone else. Like I bet every listener who's listening here will do exactly the same thing. And so the problem with like me and my industry is that like the getting the credit for the work often isn't that cut and dry, because people are like, oh, well, I'm getting out, like sales have gone up, but a lot of them are still word of mouth. And I'm like, yeah, but like, so it's like, and to keep the tree analogy, you don't know which branch, which leaf, which part of, like if there's a bird that is nesting in that tree, you don't know which part of the tree attracted the bird to land on it and nest. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's complex. It's not that, we live in a very complex world at the moment. Things aren't that cut and dry.
No, it's not. And look, I've come across this as well, is I've I've observed, because we track our statistics and our followers and that, and what we'll see is somebody will pop up, or they'll be popping up on Instagram, they'll be following us on LinkedIn, and we'll see that they've downloaded stuff from our website, and then we get the phone call from them. So we can actually see that trail of, I guess, interactions. So, but it's been more than one interaction in more than one area.
Exactly.
And I think, stealing a phrase from you, they're different types of conversations that we've been having with this potential client without actually having a conversation with them.
Exactly. Like they're getting to, the old adage of the people do business with people they know, like, and trust. That's where it is. Is like you need to have enough content out there in enough places, talking to your customers in ways that they understand are important to them, in language they understand that's appropriate for where it is. And we were talking before we hit record as well, is like you'll have a different conversation on LinkedIn to what you'd have on Instagram. You're not going to be posting the exact same thing, or you shouldn't be posting the exact same thing. Some people do, but you shouldn't be. It might be the same essence, but it's not going to be the exact same post, because people in LinkedIn are in a different mindset than people who are on Instagram or on Facebook or on Threads or on whatever other platforms they might be on. People on YouTube, for instance, are looking usually for longer form content that they're going to sit down and engage with. They want to learn how to do something. People on Instagram are usually just looking for inspiration and pretty photos and sunsets and pretty things, like very easy to consume, often while they're sitting on a toilet. That it's not like in-depth information. It's just like, I'm stuck on a bus, I'm waiting in a queue, I'm going to scroll through, capture their eyes. Like, it's not deep conversation on Instagram. I always think of Instagram as like the nightclub. Like, you can't have real conversations, but it's just everyone looks like, where's the eye catching? Yeah.
But there is that place. So like if you've got like I think what we describe as thought leadership, more detailed explanations than a different forum, say LinkedIn or
and YouTube.
Blog sites, YouTube.
Your blog,
Yeah. So and that comes back to that whole analogy of the tree with the multiple branches. And look, you mentioned about 10%, losing 10% of the tree. A lot of business owners have been panicking recently over what's going on with TikTok, what's going on with X, what am I losing there? But if that's all the marketing focus you've got, well, you're in trouble, because you've got this little twig with one branch. But if you've got a very solid brand with marketing on all of those different branches and spread out and lots of content, then one media disappears, you're not going to be impacted.
Exactly. And they're saying too, like, even if it's word of mouth, like if you've got if 80% of your business, and you know this in what you do, if you've got too many, like too big a client, that's a really dangerous place to be. You lose that client for whatever reason, and your business is in big trouble. Whereas if you have a more broad reach of clients, then you lose one client, you're fine. Like, it's not gonna, it's never fun, but you'll be fine. It's all a numbers game. And if you it gives a lot more resilient. The bigger your tree is, the more resilient you are.
So it's about reducing risk as well in your marketing strategy.
100%.
But we're focusing on the same ideal client. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. Same ideal client who are in a different situation, potentially on a different. You can have a few ideal clients. So you might have typically speaking, you might have between 1 and 3 customer avatars, is what we call them. And so it might be, that and they'll have things in common. But if you talk to an individual person who is your made up person, how they show up. So if you think about your friends, for instance, and your colleagues and stuff, if you're having a barbecue with someone, they're going to be a different person when they're out, having a beer and game of cricket or whatever, than they are going to be if they're at a networking event or at an awards night or at they're visiting their parents or, anything else. Like, you have different people. But I think that oftentimes in marketing, people forget that the people that they're talking to are people with all of the problems. So even if they're talking to a very professional person, one of their big problems might be the fact that they're spending too much time at work and their significant other is really annoyed at them because they're working too long an hour. So you can help them save the time that they're spending, which will give them time with their loved ones to go and do the things that are important to them and be spending more time, on the beach throwing the ball with the thing. So that's why. So as an example of like LinkedIn versus Instagram, because they're kind of possibly almost the most opposite in a way as far as like perception goes. On Instagram, you could be posting things about you doing the things that your ideal avatar would be doing when they're not working. And they're identifying. So I wish I was there. Oh, that person is that person. Oh, actually, I saw them on LinkedIn when they were promoting their workshop that they were doing. And then you've got the connection. You've got two pieces that they've seen you as a three-dimensional person who plays frisbee with their dog. And they've also seen that you've done doing a seminar on whatever, or you're doing a podcast, or you're doing whatever your offering is. It's a very professional offering on LinkedIn, but people will see the two together.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, because I think about like some of the, well, I guess the journey from when I first met somebody to when they've become a client. That first journey might have been like a casual interaction at a cafe or at a networking event where, again, there's, a bit like the nightclub, there's a lot of noise, hard to have a proper conversation. And then it might be a more detailed conversation, maybe a phone call or a deliberate meet up over a cup of coffee. Before we come down to, they're going to come to a workshop or a webinar, and then we might be, permitted to have that conversation with, well, how can we get started working with you?
Exactly.
But there's a lot of interactions and lots of different styles of interactions along the way.
Exactly. So one of my a good friend and mentor of mine says a line that relationships equal interactions over time, which is very scientific, but it's true. You think about it, like you have a relationship with your local barista. You might not say more than, almond latte, please, but you have a relationship with them over a period of time that you have interactions over time. Whether the interactions are small or large, obviously relationships get deeper if you're having deeper interactions, and you can have more intimate relationship. But I think it was Ryan Dice that kind of made fantastic analogy about you don't want to ask people to marry them on the first date. You don't even want to ask them their phone number. You want to ask them, meet them in a safe, neutral situation. If you're thinking you're going back to dating, otherwise it's just creepy. If you go in too hard, too fast, it's just creepy. You want people to get to know you and be, okay, this person looks interesting. I like what they say. We seem to be in the same mindset. We seem to have things in common. I think I could get along with them, whether that's business or personal or both, depending on what the things are. I mean, if you're in commerce and it's much more transactional, it's less important. But if you're in a B2B or a service-based thing, the relationship piece is much, much more important. But even transactional stuff, you still want to trust that you're going to get whatever it is that you buy. You want to trust that it's made in a way that suits your own ethics, and that it's something that you want to give your money to, and that will turn up, and it will depend on what the thing is that you're buying. So it works for all industries and all everything. It's just different. There's slightly different nuances depending on the situation.
Yeah. Look, Marama, you've said a lot of great tips and I guess a lot of strategy there, which I think is the missing piece in a lot of business when they're actually talking about, well, how do I grow my business? How do I grow my sales? We'll immediately jump to the tactic and not the strategy. Again, stealing from the marketing tree infographic. Well, you need to go to oracletree.com and have a look at that. But while you're on oracletree.com, there are some other resources that you should check out. And I think there's some regular workshops that you run to help business owners with this.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we do free lunchtime workshops periodically throughout the year. So we've got a series starting just now. Obviously, I don't know when you're going to be hearing this, Mr. Listener and Mrs. Listener, but we do them fairly regularly. So hop onto the resources tab, and there will always be an expression of interest. So if you've missed the round, you'd register your interest for the next one. But we've got, I think, about 6 or 7 different workshops touching on different things up there in the next few months. And we did them last year and they were lots of fun. So I imagine that we'll probably keep doing it because I enjoy it as part of that giving back process. So I imagine Golden Day around.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, we mentioned the book earlier, Fixing Frankenstein, How to Take the Monster Out of Running a Small Business. And look, we've been talking about the different stages of the journey. And I guess, look, if you are interested in working with Marama and Oracle Tree, the first step is check out the website, oracletree.com. Have a look at the workshops, have a look at the resources, and then reach out and say, well, how can you work with me to get me a better result? So I don't have a Frankenstein and I am working with the clients that I want to work with.
Exactly. And there is a big red button on there as well that you can actually book in a free 20-minute strategy session, which, if anyone's listening, is actually a strategy session. Like you'll be talking to me much like I'm talking to Paul now, of like, this is what's going on. And I'll be like, blah, 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 and give you as much information as I can in that 20 minutes. So feel free to do that as well. That's, again, part of my giving back. It's not a sales pitch. It's, if you want to work with me, obviously I'll tell you how, but that's not what the intention is. So quite a few people use that and like, I don't have any space to work with you right now, but I'd really like some advice on this. And I'm more than happy to give my time as part of like helping SMEs kind of get out of that monster mindset. So feel free to do that.
Fantastic. Well, Marama, thank you very much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and some great advice, great information, great tools and resources available. And thank you for sharing this and giving back to small, medium businesses. And look, as a listener, please reach out, have a look at the resources. And if you've got value from today's episode, please share it with another small business owner that needs help or would benefit from hearing content like today's discussion with Marama, or any of the other conversations we've had on the Business Behind Your Business, which are all available on our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Or watch podcasts on YouTube. So plenty of options however you want to digest great content like we've had today. So please share that with a business owner that needs to know. So thank you again. Thank you, listeners, and thank you, Marama.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye.